We're not going to see Walker Buehler in the Cactus League at all. Is that a cause for concern? Shohei Ohtani finally did live BP, hit a home run, and we got a question about his overall Dodger career. And Mookie Betts, his teammates supposedly have thoughts on him and all his off the field endeavors. Is that true, or just Dylan Hernandez saying things? That's what we're going to get into. So let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. And new customers should join today and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And if you want to become an everydayer, all you have to do is listen or watch every day, which can be made easier by subscribing and getting notified when episodes are ready. If this is your first time listening or watching, welcome. My name is Vince Samperio, joined by my co-host Jeff Snyder. Jeff and I are both lifelong Dodger fans that have been watching the Dodgers since we were kids, that we have been covering the Dodgers since we were adults, and we continue to do that. We're not quite insiders, but we're here to bring you what we believe is smart and rational thoughts about the Dodgers, making you and us better Dodger fans overall. And we're here to do that once again. We got some somewhat news out of Dodger camp in the sense of Walker Buehler, so we're going to start there. Walker Buehler, we knew was going to be on delay to start the season. We weren't really sure how long or what that delay is. We got a little bit of a timeline on that coming out of Monday with Dave Roberts saying that Walker Buehler would not pitch in any Cactus League games, which means he'd at least be delayed a month to start the season, which puts him there, late April, early May at the very earliest, which it does seem like it might be a little bit beyond that.
Yeah, Roberts did have a lot of good things to say about how Buehler has looked. Maybe let's just play this clip, courtesy of Sports in LA, what Roberts had to say about Buehler, and at the end he does talk about that Cactus League stuff.
I don't want to, put pressure on the training staff or Walker. I do know that he is throwing the baseball really well. As the days go on, he's going to get very anxious knowing who he is as a competitor. I just don't know right now. When he gets into the regular routine of facing hitters, extending, getting some length, then I think it'll be more clear to kind of project. But right now, I don't even know, time to return for Walker Buehler.
Is there any chance back to Walker? Is he going to pitch in Cactus League games at all?
I think that right there is probably unlikely.
The interesting thing about all this for me, I guess, is like it's not totally clear whether they're holding back on Buehler because he's not ready, or just kind of in view of the long run, knowing that his innings are going to be limited this year because of coming back from surgery. And so they want to kind of front load at least some of that break so that, to try to have him as healthy and strong as possible in October. And we're not really getting any hints either way from Roberts. Because when you think about it, just what's it been 5 months ago, Walker Buehler was seriously wanting to be back in September and pitch for the Dodgers in the postseason. And then the Dodgers shut that down so that he could be, not risk this year. But it seems like if there was any sort of chance that he was going to be ready in last September, that he would probably be ready around now after 5 more months. And so I would guess that this is all just based on, knowing, okay, we're probably only going to get 130, 140 innings from him this year. So no point having him start the season in the rotation.
It's what it feels like. And realistically, just some of the wording that he used there in terms of, Walker Buehler being the competitor that he is, wanting to go. Like, I'm sure if it was up to Walker Buehler and his arm allowed him, then he would be ready to go at the start of the season. It doesn't necessarily seem like that's I don't think it's all that. I think it's definitely the team easing him in, knowing that they have at least to start. It's one of those things where if you start the season with depth, you can have the Walker Buehler kind of wait around and start the season a little bit later. Whereas if you were coming into it and you had multiple guys injured and you needed Walker Buehler, then maybe they would push him that way and kind of, okay, you're going to pitch in the beginning of the season, but then we'll kind of whether it's a IL stint or whether it's we skip your start every so often, whatever the case is, to kind of monitor those innings. So I think it's probably that. But for me, yeah, I don't have any issues with it as long as everyone's being transparent, which they don't necessarily need to be transparent with us as fans. But yeah, I mean, we know how Walker Buehler is. We've seen him. He's said, I think he's on the Just Baseball show. He's still been on it. He said he was, still 92, 94 in his bullpens, which is a little bit down from where he's been. So I don't know if there's still more to work up to, if that's where he's going to be now. Maybe adrenaline gets him to 95, maybe 96. Well, that remains to be seen. But there's definitely a lot of question marks left for Walker Buehler. And a lot of our answers over the offseason have been, well, he's Walker Buehler. We're expecting to be back. But, that might not be the answer.
Yeah, it is safe to assume that Buehler and the Dodgers are on the same page. You mentioned that transparency. I'm sure the Dodgers are being transparent with Buehler and vice versa, and having that plan for him. And Roberts kind of acknowledges that Buehler's going to get antsy. He's going to want to be in the games, but Buehler's also going into free agency. And I think Buehler recognizes that 130 really, really good innings are probably better for him financially in free agency than 180 innings where he's not as good or has his ups and downs. And because especially if the 130 innings are from some point after opening day through October. And so he can go into free agency saying, look, I'm healthy and I'm really good. And so I do think that his best interest and the Dodgers' best interests happen to line up, even though he is going into free agency, because the Dodgers would like nothing more than for Buehler to be healthy and awesome in October. And even if that means that they lose him in free agency or have to pay more to keep him in free agency or whatever it is, those interests definitely line up.
Yeah, for sure. And, with everything that kind of comes with the Dodgers is stuff will kind of figure itself out if something happens early in the season and he ends up coming in and being a guy that throws his rehab starts in the majors, which is possible. That's always an option for them. But realistically, between Sheehan, Grove, Gavin Stone, Ryan Yarbrough, assuming they all stay in the organization through the spring training and into the regular season, they have more than enough to carry the load early on, and the offense should be putting up enough runs, which is one of the things we're going to talk about next, because Shohei Ohtani hit against live pitching. He hit a home run. He came out of it all good as far as we know, and that was the next step that we were looking forward to that we talked about just yesterday. So now we'll talk about the results of it today. That's what's coming up, so make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. And it can be made easier by subscribing on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. And if you're on YouTube already, you can go to Locked On Sports Today or Locked On Sports Los Angeles. Those are two 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network that are covering the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world, from Locked On hosts, experts, and more. They're running all day, all night. Whenever you need it, go check those out. And yeah, we'll be on Locked On Sports Los Angeles for sure. So, Jeff, our next Topic is Shohei Ohtani, and we kind of joked last week or 2 weeks ago that we could have an Ohtani segment probably the rest of the way in spring, and we haven't quite had that yet, but we've had it at least the last 2 days and the first 2 days of this week. But Ohtani, we just talked about yesterday and facing live pitching and how he had been on the schedule a couple times, didn't end up doing it, kind of was on his schedule, not anything to be concerned about. Well, those concerns were quelled pretty quick because he did face live pitching on Monday morning, and he hit one home run. He faced JP Fireeisen. He took him deep, and it was one of those, anything. It feels kind of funny watching these videos from spring with all these reactions because you can't necessarily tell if it's fan reactions or teammate reactions or anything else, or it probably is a combination. But the general awe of what is going on with Ohtani is kind of interesting.
Yeah, we've got video of that home run too. It's just a short little video from Sports LA. I'm going to play that right now. A couple things you might notice from that. In the background, there's guys in Dodger uniforms sitting in a dugout with their phones out filming that. There's fan excitement there too, but this is all of Dodgerland excitement. And, it was just the one swing. I think that was the only fair ball he hit. He took a lot of pitches. First time in the box, he didn't take any swings. He was just tracking pitches and then took a couple swings against Blake Trinan. I know he fouled one off. He swung and missed once. And then even against Fireeisen, he took a few pitches before actually swinging and hitting that home run. And so he definitely, it was just another step in the process. And even if he had hit a ground ball to second, it would have been exciting, hey, he just hit a fair ball off of a live pitcher. But the fact that he did put a good swing on it, hit the ball well, we said yesterday, we were going to be excited about whatever happened, and it happened, and it was exciting. And it was kind of the talk of baseball, much to the chagrin of some people. There's definitely Ohtani fatigue around the league, and it is not in Dodgerland, definitely not on the Locked On Dodgers podcast. I don't know if we're ever going to get Ohtani fatigue, but I think fans of, an unnamed team that Ohtani used to play for seem pretty grumpy about any mention of Ohtani, and hopefully they will channel that anger in the right place, which is Artie Moreno.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting when your team and everyone around you covers Ohtani the way he maybe deserves to be covered. That it's going to happen sometimes that you're not necessarily a fan of it. But this all kind of goes into a question that we got last week. I remember you guys put in questions. We didn't get to all of them. One of them comes from Jonathan at LA Dodgers CT3, and he asks, can Ohtani make his way on the Dodgers Mount Rushmore when it's all said and done? Jonathan adds, along with Sandy, Jackie, and Kershaw. Now, Ohtani signed to a 10-year deal. After next year should be pitching and hitting for however long he can do that for. Yeah, Jeff, is this one of those where Ohtani can become a Dodger great legend up there with the upper echelons of the rest of the guys?
The Mount Rushmore questions are always interesting to me just because I wish Mount Rushmore, the actual Mount Rushmore, had 11 people on it or something instead of just 4, because it's impossible to narrow down a team with the history of the Dodgers to 4. I mean, even the 4 that, or the 3 that were listed there, Jackie and Koufax and Kershaw. Well, that leaves out Tommy Lasorda and Vin Scully and Duke Snyder and Don Drysdale and Oral Hershiser, Fernando, so many guys who maybe would be on another team's Mount Rushmore. And so, can Ohtani be one of the 4 best Dodgers of all time? I guess that'll depend on, I guess part of the advantage or the benefit he has going into that is that both Jackie Robinson and Sandy Koufax had relatively short careers. Jackie's because he didn't get to start till he was 28, and Koufax is because he retired when he was 30. And so the fact that Ohtani played the first several years of his career in Japan and the first several years of his MLB career in Anaheim, well, he's still going to get, hopefully, the full 10 years in LA and playing really well. And if that's the case, if Ohtani plays really, really well for the next 10 years, yeah, especially if he, hits well and pitches well. If all goes according to plan, Ohtani could easily end up as, one of the, at least arguably one of the 4 best Dodgers of all time.
I think his case in this sense is going to be tied to how many championships they win. Because realistically, if he hits 50 homers a year and like hits 500 homers specifically as a Dodger, that might be enough. If he hits and pitches well, maybe wins one Cy Young somehow in there, a few MVPs in there, that he statistically he would be one of those Dodger greats in that sense. But I think what would put him on, quote unquote Mount Rushmore would be, I think any success with the Dodgers of his is going to be tied unfairly or fairly to championships. And I think if the Dodgers win, at least 2 in the next 10 years, that's, for sure going to boost his case. If they win anything more than that, I think that solidifies it with him having, relatively good numbers throughout those 10 years. But, I do think it's kind of tied a little bit to how much they win. Whereas, guys, Jackie and Sandy did win, Kershaw's won, but those guys have a little bit different reverent. Jackie has breaking the color barrier. Kershaw's been with the team, almost is going to be year 17 coming into it, and did win, was MVP, does have the Cy Youngs. Sandy Koufax has all the accolades that he has. No hitters and World Series and everything else. And I think Ohtani's is going to be tied a little bit more to championships just because he's coming in as a generational talent already.
Yeah, because he, the one thing that Jackie and Koufax and Kershaw have in common is that they never played for any team other than the Dodgers. They are born, obviously Kershaw's the only one drafted by the Dodgers because he's the only one who came in when the draft existed, but the Dodgers famously brought in all 3 guys. They drafted Kershaw. They signed Koufax as a bonus baby. They, signed Jackie Robinson under the most unique circumstances in baseball history. And so, like you said, the fact that he's already won 2 MVPs without the Dodgers. And so just winning a bunch more MVPs might not make him a Dodger legend, but winning 4 World Series titles and 4 or 5 MVPs. That cements the Dodgers hat on his Hall of Fame plaque if he does those things. And it will be impossible for him to be considered one of the upper echelon great Dodgers if his Hall of Fame plaque doesn't have a Dodger head on it. And so he does need to perform at least, he has basically the equivalent of about 4 seasons of great production with the Angels. And so he needs to at least top that, and probably by a lot, in order to really become a true Dodger legend. And, again, when we're talking about limiting it to 4 people, I don't know if he'll ever get to the point where everybody in the world agrees that he is on Dodgers Mount Rushmore. Because like right now, I don't even necessarily agree. I don't know if you can pick 4 people. The Dodgers have more than 4 people who deserve to be on Mount Rushmore. But if we're talking about, Dodgers greats, and more than just having the number retired, because, Jim Gilliam and even Don Sutton aren't quite in that upper echelon. So Ohtani, in addition to having his number 17 retired by the Dodgers, is going to have to take that next step to be, one of the guys when you say, who are the Dodgers greats? And he's one of the first names that comes out of your mouth.
Yeah. The other part of that is, let's just say they do win a few titles over these next 10 years. Mookie Betts is going to be right there as well. And then, if you were going pure around Mount Rushmore, then, does Mookie make it? Does, whatever the case is. So, it's hard to pick just 4, like you said, even if you broke it down. You'd have to break it down by like decades or eras to really kind of get the gratification of a true Mount Rushmore for the Dodgers specifically. So, yeah, but, all that to say, Mookie Betts is up next in our topics. There was an article from the LA Times that talked about Mookie Betts, and after his comments about, caring or not caring, how he performed last year in the playoffs. And there's a little tidbit in there that we're trying to see if it was true. And if it is true, how come there wasn't more expanded on it? So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. All you got to do is place one bet of $5 or more. If that bet wins, you get an extra $150 to place more bets with. So go check it out right now at FanDuel.com/lockedon. You can bet on all your favorite NBA players and NBA teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. You know, LeBron to score over a certain amount of points, Anthony Davis to get over a certain amount of rebounds if you're a Lake fan, you know, Kawhi Leonard or Paul George or anybody else, the Clippers winning, you know, if you're that other LA team fan, or if you're not, then just any NBA bet that's out there that you think, you know what, I feel the confidence in this. I'm going to put $5 on this and then I'm going to get $150 after. So go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Welcome back to Locked On Dodgers. If you are not an everydayer, that is someone that listens or watches every day. And admittedly, that's some of our favorite people that watch this show are the ones that watch every single day or listen on wherever you get YouTube, or not wherever you get YouTube, wherever you get podcasts every single day. Some of our other favorite fans are Locked On Dodgers insiders. You can become one of those by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers, and you can text directly with us, get updates from us. You can ask us questions. Some of those questions get, you know, featured on the show. We had a Locked On Dodgers insider question yesterday. So go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Get the free trial, check it out, and if you want to stick around with us, you're more than welcome to do so. All right, Jeff. Mookie Betts, you know, we talked about his comments last week about, you know, how he performed in the postseason, the idea of that he doesn't care and everything else. And, you know, we were obviously in Mookie's side of things in the sense of, you know, he just didn't hit. It's not a matter of caring or anything like that. It's just a matter of him not performing. Because if you think he didn't care and, you know, Freddie Freeman was right there with him and not performing, and, you know, if you think Freddie and Mookie both don't care, then, you know, that might be more of a question of your beliefs rather than their beliefs. But it was an article from the LA Times from Dylan Hernandez, and there was one, you know, it had most of the quotes from Mookie and kind of talked about, you know, what happened last year and everything else. But there was one little thing in there that was a interesting tidbit. And it talked about Mookie Betts and it talked about his teammates. And it said, the extreme fluctuations in performance coupled with his relatively low-key demeanor have made even some of his teammates question his commitment. There was no follow-up after that, no, you know, anonymous quote or even an anonymous, you know, anecdote or anything like that. So, Jeff, you know, while I do believe maybe somebody mentioned it to him or something of that nature, I don't think he would make it up out of thin air. But to not expand on it seemed a little bit disingenuous to Mookie.
Yeah, I think it's ridiculous. I think it's bad journalism for one thing, if you can believe that coming from Dylan Hernandez. I also think that anytime you have a group of 26 people, or over the course of a season, you know what, 55 people who can say they were Mookie's teammate last year. Yeah, probably one of them did question his commitment. Okay. Was it, you know, I'm not even going to name names. But was it a guy who played 3 games with the Dodgers, or was it a key player? What, you know, like, that's information that's useful. Saying, and this says some of his teammates. So Dylan Hernandez is saying that multiple of Mookie's teammates have questioned Mookie's commitment. Presumably, they've said this directly to Dylan Hernandez, because how else would Dylan Hernandez know about it? So what Dylan Hernandez is telling us is that multiple of Mookie Betts' teammates have called or texted Dylan Hernandez and said, man, I sure do question Mookie Betts' commitment, what with all this stuff that he has going on. And the fact is, it's ridiculous. And Mookie even said it. He played 4 sports growing up, you know, and he became an elite Major League Baseball player. He has been into all these other things. But the only thing different last year was his podcast, you know, and I mean, Vince, you can speak more than most people about how much work Mookie actually had to put into it. Mostly, I mean, Mookie sat on a couch for an hour at a time and talked to his buddies. The rest of the work, Mookie wasn't producing this podcast. Mookie put in less work on his podcast than we put in on this one. You know, like, you and other people did the work on Mookie's podcast. Mookie had conversations with his friends, right? I'm not wrong about that, right?
No, that's very true.
Yeah. And so, which is good. That's the way it should be, because Mookie is a professional baseball player. He has more important things to talk about or to focus on. And so, yeah, it would be great. And that's the only thing that was different last year than in previous years is the podcast. He's always enjoyed bowling, and it's never been a problem. I mean, the fact that Mookie has struggled, it has kind of faded into the finish line several years says more about the grueling nature of a long season. And it's not like, oh, well, if he hadn't gone bowling 14 times during the season, he would have had more energy. Like, I've been bowling. It's not that, I mean, I'm in terrible shape, and it takes me an hour or two to recover from bowling. It's not a grueling physical sport. It's a skill sport. And I don't know. It's just crazy to me that anybody would actually think Mookie needs to think about nothing but baseball. And that is why he went hitless in 3 games against D-backs last year. People go hitless in 3 game stretches. It just sucks that it happened in October.
And it's weird to tie it to like fluctuations in performance, like hot month, cold month. Like that makes it even. So he only cares. He cared a lot in the month of August, but then in September he's like, I don't care so much. So I'm not going to hit it as well. And then in October, like I said, 3 games, he was like, yeah, you know what? I don't care this month either. Like it doesn't make sense. If he was somebody that consistently faded at the end of the season, or consistently had a slow start coming into the season, where it's like, okay, you didn't work out in the offseason, or you haven't maintained yourself throughout the regular season, then I could see inklings of how people can get to those final destinations of Mookie not caring. But for it to be an up and down during the season, or even week to week, month to month, whatever it is, it's kind of loses its mustard a little bit, because you're saying, oh, he cared this month, but not this month.
Yeah. And like, don't you think Mookie, if we establish that he does care, don't you think he would identify a correlation? Like last August, when he was the best player in baseball for the whole month of August, don't you think it would, if there was some correlation, oh, well, I didn't bowl it all this month, and I didn't do my podcast as many times this month, and I had my best month, maybe I should try that again. If there was a correlation, Mookie would be the one to find it. I don't even understand where it's coming from. And just the fact that Dylan just throws out this bomb. Some of his teammates question his commitment and then never mentions it again. Like, that is a statement that when you're reading an article, like if you're writing this as a paper for school, that would be a great opening statement, where then your next 3 paragraphs are examples. But there's not. He never mentions it again in the article. Doesn't even hint at it again. Just throws it out there like we should just accept it. And like, if you're not willing to put names on it, it reminds me of the Yasiel Puig stuff with Andy Van Slyke on the radio several years ago, saying that his son had told him that the highest paid player on the Dodgers hated Yasiel Puig or something like that. And everybody just took that to mean Clayton Kershaw hates Yasiel Puig, when it was pretty clearly talking about Zach Greinke, but because Andy Van Slyke said the highest paid player, everybody just said, well, Clayton Kershaw's the highest paid player, when probably what he meant to say was a high paid player or something. But, and so it wasn't actually new information, and it's just like ridiculous stuff. Like I just, Dylan Hernandez, like we read this so you guys don't have to. I'll put it that way. Like it's ridiculous and it's awful.
Yeah. And then, last year for Mookie, regardless of the fact that he loves to play infield and came up in infield and everything else, it's still not something that you're, I've been a Gold Glove outfielder for almost my entire career now. And, but our team really needs a shortstop right now, or a second baseman right now. And yeah, I love, to play, whatever, I love to play catcher, let's just say. That doesn't mean I want to go play catcher like for every day. Like it's a different spot. I've already had success in the spot I'm in. Like, that's not something he had to do. That's something he did do. And, now he's going to be more of an everyday infielder because of it. But, there was a lot last year to Mookie, having one of his best. If you're coming off a struggling September, which Dave Roberts, alluded to maybe Mookie was trying to get that 40th home run a little bit there towards the end. I can understand that. That's understandable. That's not a question of commitment. That's just a question of, sometimes you get in your head a little bit when you're at the plate. But then, when you get to 3 games in October, and at any point, he only had one at bat or maybe 1 or 2 at bats where he wasn't down by at least 4 runs already in most of those games in those games that he played. So it's a little bit different mentality. Again, we're not making excuses for the performance, but we're just saying that it doesn't come from a lack of caring. It just comes from, hey, you know what? It didn't happen.
Yeah. And Dodger players, if you're texting Dylan Hernandez to question Mookie Betts' commitment, I encourage you to evaluate things in your life and fix them.
All right, Jeff, you got anything else to
add? No, I think I made it clear how I feel about Dylan Hernandez, right?
Yeah, very clear. So, again, we appreciate and love Mookie. And, if it all wraps up this October with Mookie and Freddie and Shohei and everybody else leading the Dodgers to a World Series win, we're not going to care about who if Mookie bowls or not at the end of it. So,
yep.
All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to subscribe and wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure to become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. Make sure to tell your friends and family. Dodger season is upon us. Games start this week. I know everyone wants their Dodger fix, so why not stick around with us for 30 minutes a day, Monday through Friday. It's a very easy way to get your Dodger fix before the games. So go check that out. Remember, you can become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. Locked On Dodgers insider, somebody that has direct access to us through text messaging. You can get our updates from the spring and anything else that happens. You can ask us for any questions, comments, reactions, concerns, anything else, and we'll get directly back to you. Remember that the Locked On Podcast Network has 2 24/7 streaming channels, Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, going all day, all night long on YouTube. So go subscribe and check those out. You can find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at SnyDog. I'm at VinceSince91. You can DM us with any other questions or comments. You can also send those via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us when you get in your car or if you're at home. Text My Advice Play Podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.